Hey guys, my name is Aditya Krishnan and I'm a technical marketing engineer at Vila. So first of all, thanks a lot to the vBrownBag folks for giving me the opportunity to stand out here and talk to you all. And I'm having a great show this year. It's been an awesome show, awesome parties and everything of that sort. My throat is actually a little dry with all the talking that I've been doing and networking that I've been doing in the show. But as a part of my job and as a technical marketing engineer, one of the things that I do is I interface with a lot of customers, consultants, as well as experts in the industry, very much like a lot of yourselves in the show. So what we kind of, as I basically talk to some of these people, we kind of come across a lot of misconceptions as well as some fallacies with regards to the hybrid cloud migration process itself. So today I'll be going through some of these hybrid cloud migration fallacies that I come across. So I'll be going through the top 6 hybrid cloud migration fallacies, and we'll go through what some of these essentially are. So the first one is everybody always wants to migrate in a big bang. So essentially, big bang migration is moving to the hybrid cloud as quickly as possible or overnight. Essentially, the problem with the big bang, the perception with the big bang migration, essentially, or the perception is it has a much lower cost and has a much and the return on investment is very quick. However, this comes with a big roadblock with the fact that it's highly risky. So it could essentially be very highly risky, and you may end up affecting some of the business critical applications within your environment. One of the other things in terms of the reality aspect of it is that it is extremely, so even the small and mid-tier companies in this day and age basically have very high amounts of data that need to be migrated. So it's going to be highly risky to migrate all this data overnight. And the other thing that you'll also notice is that the system administrators would not have had enough time to basically work with this new setup and understand this new immigration strategy. So based on one of the vExpert surveys that we did at Vila, we basically discovered that some of the recommended solutions when it comes to migration is to use an iterative process. Using an iterative process, you can actually have a rollback option. So that way you don't necessarily have to be stuck to the cloud. You can actually roll back in case there's something that happens or in case of disaster recovery and so on. And the second thing is always involve your system administrators early on in the process. Make sure they know what the setup is and make sure that they know exactly what are the different components within your cloud environment that needs to be monitored and essentially made functional for your business critical applications. Right? So this brings me to my second fallacy that we hear about quite a lot. So everybody wants to basically move to the cloud as soon as possible because they have this thing in their head that it's all in the cloud. Everything is in the cloud. Everybody's moving to the cloud, so they want to do it themselves as well. So they basically take their virtual machines on premise and take all those services to the public cloud. The perception with the lift and shift migration essentially is that it's less expensive than actually planning for the whole migration process. So that's why a lot of people do it. But in reality, as quick as it may be, it's also extremely dirty. Dirty in the process that you don't use all the native AWS or Azure features that come along with it. And it can also be extremely expensive in the long run. So, for example, this is what I generally talk to people about. So when you're actually moving from like from your on-premise environment, you may be running a particular virtual machine, but that runs like a function only for 15 minutes every day. So when you actually move to the public cloud, instead of using this huge, large virtual machine, you could just run like a Lambda function that runs 15 minutes in a day to use the CPU and the compute functionalities in those particular cases. So that is one way you can definitely That is definitely one of the use cases when it comes to planning your migration procedures. The other thing is that when you plan your migration procedures, instead of when you re-architect your migration procedures, you'll always have like a much higher performance, because there are certain applications that are always better fitted for the cloud and certain applications that are better fitted for the private environment, and it'll also lower the cost in the long run, right? So the third thing when it comes to the migration procedure itself is the ability to people don't really know what's going on in their environment. A lot of people feel they know based on all the documentations that are out there, but there is really no application, or there's really no data that they have that can tell them what their application dependencies essentially are. So that is absolutely essential and critical during the migration process. It's basically to know what the unknown virtual machines are. So essentially, like, I mean, as you all know, like, applications can be extremely complex. It's not just having, like, you know, a load balancer and like a variety of different database servers that are talking to one another. There's a huge necessity that there are huge necessities that each of these virtual machines are connected to one another, and you may end up having certain issues if they are not, or some business critical applications may actually come down in case of certain issues. So one of the solutions in these particular cases is to make sure you use like a flow analysis tool that can actually map out all these dependencies for you. And the second application would be to second thing to do is to basically weigh all these applications based on the number of dependencies that they may have. So for example, a particular application that has, like, you know, 10 different connections has to be weighed separately from something that has just like one single connection. That way you'll know what your business critical applications are, what their interdependencies are, and how they actually function with one another. So that is one of the fallacies that we come across on a day-to-day basis. And so the other thing that we hear about every so often is that, you know, private cloud is dead. First of all, like, if private cloud was dead, we wouldn't have such a huge show like the VM World for us today. So it is. I feel there is such a big disconnect, especially when people go onto LinkedIn and they read an article where it says that, you know, public cloud is essentially going to be extinct in the next few years, because that's not true at all. And that is really the evolution of the hybrid cloud environment. Hybrid cloud environment. So essentially, I mean, the private cloud environment provides the users with the ability to have that elasticity as well as the performance and the security as well as the elasticity and the performance of the public cloud environment, with the ability to give you that security that a private cloud environment essentially provides to you. So private cloud environments are essentially secure, airtight, as well as resilient to any of the malicious activities that may happen. And the other thing that we also notice is that there are certain business critical applications that still need to be on premise on most circumstances. So that is something that we highly recommend as well. So in these cases, hybrid cloud is definitely the way to go. Using it for like the security, resiliency, and the elasticity essentially. Moreover, the solution like VMC on AWS is definitely a great solution in those particular cases to basically leverage all the AWS native applications while at the same time using the same UI and the same procedures that you use on VMware itself. So this brings to like my fifth point. A lot of people think that when you go into the cloud, you never actually go back, which is totally untrue. We find this to be a huge fallacy, and the reason this could be a big problem is that when you have that mentality or when you have that thought that you're not going to come back, you're not going to design for any disaster recovery in those particular cases. So it is absolutely essential to understand that you can actually roll back. And a lot of rollbacks that we have seen over the past few years have generally been due to like higher costs after migration, right? You end up paying a lot more money than you would for actually having server deployed in your private infrastructure. And the second thing is that sometimes when you don't have these application dependencies, you don't know what their interdependencies are, you end up, your application does not essentially work as expected on the public cloud. And this could actually cause like a lot of issues when it comes to the application or the business critical application performance itself. So some of the recommended solutions in these cases would be to make sure you have proper planning before the migration procedure, make sure you recognize all the different applications within your environment, and ensure that you right-size these different virtual machines as you move from your private cloud environment to the public cloud environment, because otherwise you're going to pay a lot more money than what's actually required. The second thing is to make sure you have a solution that can help you do a pre-migration assessment, in the sense that look at all your different dependencies, look at all the different virtual machines, what their utilization is at any given instance. And as you move to the public cloud itself, you need to be able to monitor these applications as they migrate from the private cloud environment to your public cloud, and see and monitor their performances during these particular instances. So that is one way. The public cloud. That is one way. That is one of the fallacies that can be busted when it comes to public cloud itself. So finally, this comes to my last point. So generally, people say that cloud deployment does not need any monitoring, and the reason that they say that cloud deployment doesn't need any monitoring is that the service provider or the cloud provider basically provides a 99.9% uptime. So although this is true, they provide a 99.9% uptime for the infrastructure, this may not be true for the applications itself. So for example, you all know this dog that kept appearing on everybody's search bar every time you typed Amazon.com on Amazon Prime Day, right? So if somebody like Amazon could have their infrastructure come down, I mean, we are no different. So it is absolutely essential to monitor our applications on a day-to-day basis and ensure what comes through, what are the throughputs, as well as what are the different performance metrics for each of these different applications. So essentially, the recommended solution for this would be to make sure you test your applications on a regular basis, and also make sure your environment is right sized. They have the sufficient amount of CPU resources, memory resources that is required in order to have them functioning at any given instance. So yeah, this comes to like all the 6 points that I covered, and a lot of this it was basically gathered using one of the vExpert surveys that we did at Vila. So we actually have a booklet that we created. So if you want to pick up one, you can always come down to the Vila booth and pick up one of the copies with all the vExpert recommendations with regards to the hybrid cloud migration procedures itself. Thank you. Yep.